In 1973, on the eastern coast of England's Isle of Wight, the small town of Sandown became home to one of the strangest legends ever recorded, one that offered no clear answers. No one could ever truly explain what happened that day, but everyone who heard the story remembered a single name: Sam, also known as Sam the Sandown Clown. Sam wasn't a circus clown, nor a street performer, and certainly not a prankster. According to the two children who claimed to have seen him, Sam looked like nothing they, or anyone, had ever seen before. He wasn't human. He wasn't an animal. He wasn't anything that fit our understanding of life. He called himself, "I am all colors." And when he spoke, his tone was eerily calm. So calm it sent chills down the spine. And for a nation like Britain, which prided itself on logic and reason, the story of the Sandown Clown exposed something buried deep within the human mind, our primal fear of the unknown. It was the spring of 1973. The air on the Isle of Wight was damp and cold, and the clouds hung so low they almost touched the ground. Sandown was quiet, as always. Only the faint rhythm of waves breaking along the distant shore could be heard. That afternoon, two children were playing in the woods outside town. They followed a small stream, laughing as they ran along its edge. But suddenly their laughter stopped. From somewhere deep in the woods came a strange sound, harsh and shrill. It was like an alarm, or maybe a siren from an ambulance, but with an odd, unnatural pitch. The children exchanged a nervous glance. Curiosity won out over fear, and they decided to follow the noise. The forest path twisted deeper into the shadows, the trees thick enough to block out the sky. Eventually, they reached a small wooden bridge, and it was there they realized the sound was coming from underneath it. Peering down, they saw the stream reflecting the dim daylight, its surface rippling in the wind. They stared for a moment, trying to see where the sound came from, when suddenly something moved. A large dark shape began to rise slowly from beneath the bridge. It was massive, and its outline was not human. The children froze. It felt like the air around them had been sucked away. When the figure stepped closer, they finally saw it clearly. It looked like a clown. It wore a split black and white hat, comically shaped but somehow unsettling. Its head and body seemed fused together, with no visible neck. Its eyes were triangular and faintly glowing, its nose perfectly square, and its lips a bright, almost painted red. The clothes it wore were a bizarre patchwork of red, green, blue, and yellow, like a costume, but the material didn't look like fabric. It looked smooth, synthetic, like plastic or artificial leather, reflecting the dim light in strange, shifting colors. In its hand, the creature held a peculiar device, something between a microphone and an old radio. The same alarm-like sound that had led the children there was coming from that device, now crackling faintly with static. The clown stopped about 100 feet away. It didn't move closer. It didn't run. It simply stood there, staring at them. The children held their breath, too terrified to move. After nearly a minute, the figure slowly lifted the device to its mouth. A distorted voice came through, a flat, mechanical tone mixed with faint electrical noise. It didn't sound human, and yet every word was clear. "Hello, I am all colors. My name is Sam." At that moment, everything fell silent. No wind, no birds. Even the stream seemed to pause. The children felt a kind of fear they couldn't describe, a fear not born from danger, but from the sheer impossibility of what they were witnessing. What happened after that remains a blur in the children's memories, as if something or someone had tampered with their minds. But one thing they both remembered clearly was this: Sam invited them to his home. Even though both children were terrified, somehow Sam managed to make them follow him, obediently, almost hypnotically, through a patch of low shrubs until they reached a clearing. There in the middle of the open space stood something that looked nothing like a normal house. It was dome-shaped, with smooth gray-blue metallic walls that reflected a cold, dim light. There were no windows, none at all. The whole structure didn't look like it had been built by humans. It looked more like the outer shell of some kind of mobile machine. Sam walked up to the structure, and a panel on its surface slid open with a soft hiss, like the release of air pressure. Then, without saying a word, he gestured for the two children to follow him inside. The moment they entered, the children were struck by the smell, sharp and strange, a mix of rust and dampness. The floor beneath them was made of hard metal panels, their faint reflections shimmering under the dim light. The interior was divided into two levels. The upper level had something that looked like a bed. The lower level was filled with odd devices, machines with no buttons, no labels, just a constant, low humming sound, like the steady pulse of a ship waiting to depart. Along the curved walls were patterns, blue and green, drawn in strange, uneven lines. They looked like electrical circuits, or perhaps some kind of alien writing. Sam moved about inside, busy with something. The children noticed that his movements were slow and oddly mechanical. And when he walked, there were no footsteps, no sound at all, making it impossible to tell if he even had feet. Later, the children would recall that inside the house, Sam seemed to be trying to imitate human behavior. He smiled. He gestured with his hands. He even tried to appear friendly. But his smile was deeply unsettling. It carried no emotion, no warmth, just an empty imitation, like someone who had studied the expression from a book. One of the children asked if he was human. Sam shook his head firmly. Then they asked if he was a ghost. Sam paused, as if thinking about it, and after a few seconds he nodded. "In a way," he said. That answer left a lasting mark on both of them. The encounter lasted about half an hour. When it was time to leave, Sam escorted the children out of the metallic house. As they looked back, they saw the sliding door close slowly. The light from inside dimmed, fading through the cracks, until finally the entire structure seemed to dissolve into the air, as if it had never been there at all. A few days after returning home safely, the two children finally couldn't keep their secret any longer. They told their family about the strange encounter that had happened in the woods. At first, their mother just smiled and shook her head, thinking it was another one of her children's wild stories. But when she saw their serious faces and that unmistakable look of fear that no child could fake, the smile slowly faded from her lips. Their expressions didn't look like those of kids telling tall tales. They looked like two people who had just woken from a nightmare. Realizing that something serious might have happened, the mother decided to call the police. Soon the two children, their mother, and a police officer set out for the site of the encounter. It was an overcast day. The air was damp, and the woods carried a faint smell of wet earth. When they reached the wooden bridge where the children said they had first seen the clown, it was still there. The bridge, the stream, everything unchanged. But when they went on to the clearing where the strange metal house had supposedly stood, everything looked ordinary. There was no dome-shaped structure, no sign that anything unusual had ever been there. The only thing out of place was the flattened grass and a few odd depressions in the ground, shallow, uneven marks, as if something heavy had rested there briefly before disappearing. The mother used a stick to lift the flattened grass, hoping to find some kind of evidence, but the ground was unnaturally clean. No tire tracks, no footprints, no traces of smoke or construction. Even the usual signs of wildlife seemed to be gone, as if the area had been wiped clean of all life. The only thing left was a faint metallic tang in the air, a subtle electric smell, like the static that comes before a thunderstorm, but no one could tell where it came from. In the end, the police officer just shook his head and wrote a brief note in his report. Nothing unusual or suspicious found at the scene. Witness statements unverified. Even the Isle of Wight Observer, the local newspaper that later heard about the case, chose not to publish it. The editors dismissed the story as too far-fetched, and so the whole incident quietly faded away, officially ignored, as if it had all been nothing more than a child's imagination. However, years later, that forgotten police record was rediscovered by an independent UFO researcher named Norman Ashby. At the time, Ashby was compiling files on paranormal incidents across the UK when he stumbled upon a long-lost report buried deep in an old archive. The document, marked 1973-05-WI-001, was faded and yellowed with age, its ink slightly smudged. The title was so brief and detached it almost felt cold. May 1973, Isle of Wight, report of 2 children in contact with an unknown entity. When Ashby saw it, he was immediately intrigued. He spent the next several months tracking down anyone connected to the case, trying to locate witnesses and old police records. After persistent effort, he finally found a former police assistant who had worked on the original investigation. The man was elderly now, but he still remembered that day clearly. He told Ashby that the weather had been strange, heavy and still, and that when they approached the clearing, their radios began to malfunction. The compasses briefly went haywire, their needles spinning off course, yet once they left the area, everything returned to normal. Ashby theorized that it might have been the residue of some kind of energy field. The retired officer even showed him a photograph he'd taken back then of the flattened grass where the metal structure was said to have stood. When Ashby studied the photo closely, he noticed something uncanny. The pattern of the indentations was almost identical to a supposed UFO landing site documented years earlier in southern England. The police, however, had never made the connection. When this old file finally surfaced, the story reignited public debate. Skeptics argued that the children had simply mistaken a street performer or traveling entertainer, someone dressed in eccentric clothing, for a monster. Others turned to psychology, calling it a textbook case of shared childhood hallucination. But those explanations couldn't account for the detailed description of the metallic structure or the strange impressions in the ground. Within the UFO community, far more radical theories began to spread. Some claimed that Sam wasn't an extraterrestrial being at all, but an interdimensional visitor, a being from deep within the Earth itself. Others believed he was the result of a secret government experiment, a humanoid communications probe developed during the Cold War, a half-mechanical life form designed to observe and test human reactions. That idea wasn't entirely baseless either, since the Isle of Wight lies close to a British military radar zone. A few spiritual researchers even suggested something more abstract, that Sam was a non-physical entity, a form of energy that manifested through the human mind. According to that theory, the children were able to see him only because their brains happened to resonate at the specific frequency of that existence. It sounds absurd, but when you think about it, maybe not entirely impossible. Whatever the explanation, one thing remains deeply unsettling. The children's description, the multicolored suit, the strange proportions of the head, and that haunting line, "I am all colors." Those details are far too vivid, far too specific to be dismissed as imagination. It's as if, for one brief moment, something beyond human understanding had slipped through the cracks of our reality, leaving behind only a hollow echo.